Before we get into this video, there are a few changes just to mention. A few videos ago, I made my first attempt at correcting this vent by filling it with putty. Turns out that was wrong. It actually has this trapezoid type of cover on the top of it. So I cut that out of some styrene stock and glued it on and painted it. I'm not going to speak more about it than that. Just this is how it's supposed to look. The other thing that I did was to install 2 mushroom vents on the forward superstructure. Now that you're caught up with the off-camera work, we can look at what I'll be doing in this video. That is going to be installing photo-etch and details on this upper section of the forward superstructure. I'm going to start by installing steps in this section, and then a ladder in front of the upper air defense platform. Following that, I'll install a platform and rail on the side of the forward air defense platform, and then use lead wire to create voice tubes. Since I have heavily modified this area of the ship, I also need to modify the ladders that were supposed to be used in this area of the ship. Essentially, what I've done is create an intermediate level that this ladder needs to pass through. So to accommodate that, I need to cut this ladder into 2 pieces. When I was making these modifications, I cut this ladder just to make sure that everything would fit correctly. I now need to cut the other ladder in the same way so that they can be installed. To prepare the ladder, first I cut it off of its fret, and then I remove the lower section of the hand railing. Following that, I need to cut 3 rungs of the ladder off the lower half, and I need to make sure that the angle at which the base of the posts end is slightly angled. Folding a fully intact ladder is usually a bit tricky, as the posts tend to get out of alignment with the rungs. To prevent that from happening, I prefer to use the photo-etch folding tool. With the ladder cut in parts like this, it is even more delicate, especially this lower part with just 3 rungs. Once the handrails are folded up, I use a hobby knife to push out the rungs. These ladders are now ready to be painted. Unfortunately, this photo-etch tread plate is incorrect. It is far too large, and it has this angled section at the front. The correct size for the tread plate is only one of these rectangles. When it comes to the hand railing though, it actually doesn't follow the same shape as the tread plate. It goes along the long edge, as you would expect, but it does have an angle on it where it curves in beyond the edge of the tread plate. But even still, it shouldn't be as long as the railing is here. This means I need to do a lot of modifications to this photo etch. To start, I'm going to cut this panel off the back of the tread plate, and then I'm going to remove the majority of the tread plate. Fortunately, this photo etch is quite thin, and it is easy to cut through with a knife. Since the hand railing will be folded in a location where, according to FlyHawk, it is not meant to be folded, there isn't actually a score line in the rails, which means they are a bit stiff to fold. To get a nice crisp edge on the rails, I then use the photo etch folding tool. After folding up the handrail, I do a test fit on the superstructure. One of the corners of the tread plate is obstructed by the corner of the torpedo control room. To accommodate the corner of the torpedo control platform, I simply cut out a corresponding corner on this tread plate. Now that the tread plate is sitting correctly in its position on the superstructure, I can work on correcting the handrails. First, I need to bend these handrails out to be at an angle. It shouldn't follow this short edge of the tread plate. It needs to extend beyond that a little bit. The angled rails now need to be attached to a post. Fortunately, on this offcut, there's an appropriate section of rails that I can reuse. Just need to carefully detach them from the rest of this excess. I also need to cut a corner out of it to accommodate the wind baffle. In effect, that means the top rung needs to go. This is delicate work. Once the section of hand railing is salvaged, I then glue it onto the other rails using extra thick superglue. I hold the photo etch in such a way that when I attach the section of railing, it swings down under gravity into the correct position. After giving the glue some time to dry, all the parts can then be painted. Now that the paint is dried, it's time for the installation. I'm going to start with installing the ladders because they sit below this tread plate and the tread plate will obstruct them. After installing the lower ladder, I then install the 3 steps that go up to the torpedo control platform. These I glue in place using extra thick superglue that I pre-applied to the steps. Next, I install the tread plates. Once again, I apply extra thick superglue to the edge of the tread plate and then carefully bring it into contact with the superstructure. A little bit of adjusting is required to be sure that the platforms are sitting at the same position and at the same height, so that when you view them from above or from directly in front, they look symmetrical. To give the handrails a little bit of extra strength, I glue the rails on the side of the air defense platform to the air defense platform using extra thin superglue. The last photo etch to install in this video are the ladders from the torpedo control platform to the air defense platforms. There isn't a specific section of ladder for this. You just need to cut some generic ladder to height. That's what I start by doing, just a bit of trial and error to get it to the correct height. Once it is cut to the right height, I place it onto the model in the correct location, and then glue it in place using extra thin super glue that I apply with wire. All of the handling has started to scuff up the paint a bit, but that's easily corrected with very thin paint and a brush. It's quite nice that I'm now starting to work with the photo etch on this model. It really starts adding in that extra level of detail, and it's starting to make this area of the superstructure look a lot better than the plastic part that it was before. In the next video, I'm going to continue with this process and start by adding details to the air defense platforms. Essentially, there are a lot of mounted binoculars that need to be installed in this area of the ship. They will turn it from this very bare open area into a very busy area of the ship. If you would like to support this channel or see how this ship looks when it is completed, then please subscribe. Thanks for watching. Cheers.